Hey everyone, today we're going to look at images and raw images in Unity. So what is the difference between a raw image and a normal image? Well, a raw image can display any texture, whereas an image is bound to just a sprite. So I will show you what we mean by this a little bit later on, but if you focus your attention down to the assets at the moment, it's currently under the scenes folder, which isn't ideal. I'll just put that in the assets folder. You'll see I've got a little image called design. It's literally a white box with a bit of a transparent area and then a black border around it. You can see here it is. It's nothing special, it's just a quick design I made just to demonstrate a couple of the settings we're going to play around with today. Now you'll see it's come in as a default on the texture type, and you've got loads of these different options. I'm not going to go through all of these, we're going to focus on default and sprite, but for now we'll come back to that. Let's just get on with the image. So for the image, we're going to right click, under UI we are going to hit image. And this is going to, first of all, give us our canvas and event system, which we covered in the last two videos. And we're going to get this image here. I'm going to just drag this image to the middle of the screen. Let's have a little look at the image component. So you'll see we have a source image. Now this is the sprite that you want the image to display. Now notice it has to be a sprite. My little image I've got down here, my design image, if I drag that into the source image, it won't work. That is because the design has to be a sprite. If I make this texture type, if I click on my image in the assets folder and make the texture type a sprite and then hit apply, now the image will be a sprite, and I'll be able to go to the image that we've just created and drag it into the source image. And now we've just turned our little white block into the asset we already have in our project. Now there's quite a few different options here. The first thing I'm going to start by saying is set native size, because it's the easiest one. Say we've stretched this, like it's really weird, and we click set native size. That's going to set the width and height of the image to the width and height of the original raw design. So say we're making our image 317 by 90. And the actual image I think is 87 by 90. If we hit set native size, it sets it to 87 by 90. It's a good way of resetting back to the original size of your image. Now let's talk about the color. The color is basically an overlay that's whacked on top of your image, and it changes the color of it. So if I make this red, we're going to get a red color overlay. Obviously this bit between the black and the white is transparent. Just because I wanted to demonstrate how transparency works as well. And if we make this red, you'll see only the white bit becomes red, the black doesn't become red, and that is because you are putting a color overlay on the top. You aren't pasting a new color entirely, replacing everything, otherwise it would all be one color, it would look horrible. You're just adding a contrast to it. So if this was, say, grey, it would go a bit red, like maybe a dark red, but it wouldn't go fully red. So say this was purple, you'd get a mix of purple and red, which I couldn't tell you what colour that makes. My colour theory is not great. And we can just play around with the colour here. So I'm going to leave that at white. As for the material, this is if you want to put a material on the image. So if we right click in our assets, we can create a material, and we can apply this material to the image. This is going to overlay on top of what we've done, and you get some weird funky looking designs. But if you play around with your material, you'll be able to create different things. So let's I'm going to get red here. You see the red is sort of only in the middle where our white is, because this material is being applied to our image. We can change the metallicness of it, the smoothness of it. I mean, just change the way that our material is appearing. Now I'm going to remove that material, and let's talk about Raycast Target. Now, if this is turned on, the image will be clickable. What I mean by that is you'll be able to click the image and do something with it. If this is turned off, that means that any raycasts will pass through the image to whatever is behind the image. So in a 3D workspace, if you have like a square behind this image, or a cube, sorry, behind this image, and you click the image, if Raycast Target's turned off, the raycast is going to go through the UI to the cube, and you'll basically be clicking the cube through the image. So this is good if you want like non-clickable user, so things like name tags. If you want like a name tag, you don't want the user to be able to click that and let it get in the way, you'll turn off Raycast Target. Raycast Padding is basically the area I'm sure you might be familiar with padding, but it's basically the area of that's the raycast effects. It's the interactable area of the image. So if we put this in like 10 from the side, 10 from the bottom and the top, the clickable area is going to be a lot less than the actual area of the image. So anything within this green box, raycasts will hit. Anything out will not affect the image. We're going to skip over maskable because I'm not actually sure it does much. Because masks are separate components. Basically, masking allows you to get, if you have two objects, like one object is a child of another, the child object, if it's masked, it won't be able to go outside of the parent object, if that makes sense. If I quickly demonstrate that, if I add a mask here, and quickly duplicate this image and put it inside of this one, I can actually remove the mask on this image. There we go. So now the child image will not appear outside of the mask, out of the parent image. And that's what mask is. Let's talk about image type. So simple, the image appears how it is. You expand it, it gets stretched. If you click preserve aspect ratio, that will literally preserve the aspect ratio of the sprite, so it will avoid stretching it. After simple, we have sliced. Sliced is where the image is sliced within the border. My image doesn't actually have a border, but if it did, anything like if the image goes bigger, it would just be sliced and won't fit in the image. You can change the pixels per unit multiplier on that as well. As for tiled, this basically, if I put this at 2, tiled is basically a pattern. It fills the area with multiples of the image. It's quite cool. It's good if you want a pattern. So say this is one pattern part. My pixel per unit multiplier, depending on what that is, will depend on how many of the images appear. So if I put this at 2, there will be 4 images, 3 there will be 9, 4 there will be 16. It's basically the pixels, the number of images that are displayed is going to be pixels per unit multiplier squared, basically. So I put that at 2, we get 4 images, 3 we get 9, and you can see we can create some cool tile patterns here. If you put a decimal number, so like 2.5, 2.5 squared is 6.25, and I get 6.5 images, which if we count it up, I think's right. 1, 2, 3, 4. No, those two make 5, those two make 6, and 6.25. Yeah, so that works. That you get the right number of images, and of course, the bigger I make this all depends on the width and height and like the original size of it. But as I expand it, it just creates more and more. But the pixel per unit multiplier goes off the original image size, and like the pixels per unit of that. As for filled, the image is just going to get filled, so we can change the fill amount, and it's sort of, you can get cool little shapes. I don't know. This is good if you want like timers, things like that. You can change the fill method to be horizontal, and it will go from left to right. Change its starting position. You can go vertical, and you can just change the fill amount, and this can be changed in script too. Anyway, I'm going to leave that as simple for now, and we're going to move on. Now let's talk about our raw image. So what is the raw image for? The raw image is very similar. All the same effects, it's just one different part to the raw image component that there isn't in the image component, and one change to the texture. In the normal image, we saw we had to use a sprite. In the raw image, we can use any texture. So if our design, if we don't want it to be a sprite and we want it to be just say default, we can't apply this to an image because it's not a sprite, but we can to a raw image because that takes any texture. And this is good this is very useful if you don't want to convert this image from the texture type of the original image, because that can be quite demanding. It uses up extra, it can just create extra size and things like that. So if you don't need to convert it, raw images can be very useful. So if I go for a normal map and apply that, our raw image, let's apply the design, and nothing much is going to happen because it's not the right format. But it just allows us to use any texture instead of a sprite-specific one. And the UV Rect, this allows you to change how the image is portrayed. So if I make this, say, the width, we can change the width and height of the object within the image. So obviously the lower it is, the larger the image will be. We can change the X and Y coordinate of it. So 1 and 1 will be a 1-to-1 scale. Say I want to make this 1.5, or let's go 0.8 and then 0.8. You see I'm making the image a lot bigger. And now I want to focus on this little corner down here. I can change the X and the Y. So if I do that, and then I can change the Y as well. And then I can get this corner in the middle, and the rest is just cut out of the screen. And that could be useful if you need like something like this. Like this could be used as a little mouse cursor, or a minimize window, something like that. That can actually be used as a fairly alright image for something. And it just saves you having to create loads of different things. And that is it for images and raw images, everyone. I think in the next video we're going to cover the Rect transform, just so you can get a bit familiar with what all these different things mean, because every user interface element we are going to create in this series is going to have a Rect transform, and I feel like it's really important that we get to familiarise ourselves with it, what it is, how it all works. So I'll see you all in the next video, everyone. I hope you found this helpful. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe. I will see you in the next video, and goodbye.